What if television's most impeccably dressed, perfectly composed secretary was guarding a truth that could have toppled two glittering careers? Imagine Nancy Kulp, forever remembered as Miss Jane Hathaway, stepping out of the grand staircase set of the Beverly Hillbillies and gliding into a smoky Los Angeles ballroom where the sharpest tongue in comedy, Red Foxx, holds court. Picture the instant spark. Two minds laughing louder than the orchestra. Shards of chandelier, light dancing across their faces as they recognize in each other the same fierce intellect, the same hunger for justice, the same refusal to be boxed in by other people's fears. For decades, viewers saw only the caricatures. She, the prim spinster, he, the brash junk dealer. Yet behind the canned laughter and the tabloid glare, they wove a secret alliance. One part friendship, one part romance, woven with daring, compassion, and humor, strong enough to withstand an era that hissed at interracial love. Tonight, their hidden story unfurls in full. From Nancy's small-town notebooks to naval code rooms, from MGM backlots to congressional rallies, from Red's party record circuits to primetime fame, and, finally, to the letters that prove what the cameras never showed. When the curtain falls, you'll understand why they shielded their bond from a world eager to tear it apart, and why that choice was the bravest act either ever performed. Before Hollywood even knew her name, Nancy Jane Kulp paced the dirt lanes of tiny Mifflintown, Pennsylvania, clutching a spiral notebook, collecting stories the way other children collected marbles. Her father, a traveling salesman, taught her to read roadside billboards aloud. Her mother corrected every dangling participle before dinner was served. At 14, the family migrated south to muggy Miami-Dade County, where Nancy inhaled library shelves, edited the high school newspaper, and performed Shakespeare monologues to the stray cats outside the band room. Florida State College for Women sharpened her curiosity. She dissected political speeches for cadence, penned caustic columns on campus sexism, and imagined herself war corresponding from the front lines. A scholarship whisked her to the University of Miami for a master's in English and French. Nights dissolved in coffee, Baudelaire, and the conviction that words could rattle empires. Then history knocked. After Pearl Harbor, the 23-year-old traded typewriters for uniforms, marching into the U.S. Navy Women's Reserve. Lieutenant junior grade Kulp drilled recruits, decoded enemy chatter, and hosted midnight morale broadcasts that mixed weather reports with quips only code breakers understood. The war tattooed discipline on her bones, but also perspective. Life's brevity demands courage, and the loudest room is often silent if truth goes unspoken. When VJ Day fireworks faded, two roads beckoned: newsroom deadlines or the uncharted promise of a stage. Her naval stride carried her west, toward a soundstage she had never planned to enter. Los Angeles, 1950. Neon sizzles against palm fronds. Bebop drifts from sunset basements, and MGM publicity offices buzz with gossip. Nancy, taller than most leading men, even in flat shoes, drafts press releases for ingenues half her age, but studio corridors echo with her resonant baritone. One frantic afternoon, a casting assistant overhears her reading copy aloud and blurts, "That voice belongs on screen." Curiosity knocks louder than caution. She auditions, lands a single line in The Model and The Marriage Broker, then 3 lines in Shane, then a blink and you'll miss a cameo in A Star is Born. Each role lasts mere minutes, yet audiences remember the arched eyebrow, the whip-crack pause before a deadpan punchline. Directors dub her the scene stealer in Sensible Shoes, a woman who can inflate a 3-word cameo into a belly laugh that rattles the rafters. Offset, she devours Chaplin reels and jots notes on comedic math. Beat, breath, surprise, release. Hollywood in the 50s, however, craves dainty damsels, not statuesque intellectuals. Instead of bitterness, she nurtures mastery, turning every secretary, librarian, or nosy neighbor into a miniature masterclass. Extras linger by monitors to watch her improvise sotto voce zingers between takes. A decade of disciplined patience culminates in 1961 when a pilot script lands on her agent's desk. A backwoods clan striking oil and storming Beverly Hills. Producers want a bank assistant able to exude executive precision, yet betray secret longing. Nancy reads 3 pages, closes the script, and says simply, "I know who she is." In truth, she has been rehearsing Miss Jane Hathaway her entire life. September 1962. Critics predict the Beverly Hillbillies will be canceled by Christmas. By November, it tops 60 million viewers. America delights in Granny's moonshine and Jed's homespun wisdom, but Miss Jane Hathaway supplies the show's sly heartbeat. Week after week, she balances ledgers, rescues Jethro from harebrained schemes, and reveals microscopic glimmers of yearning behind horn-rimmed glasses. Kids mimic her perfect posture. Adults admire her restraint. Emmy voters nominate her in 1967 for elevating understatement to art. Yet stardom's spotlight scalds. Gossip columnists probe. Who is Nancy Kulp off camera? She parries with naval anecdotes, quotes Voltaire, and steers interviews back to craft. Whenever scripts shortchange Miss Jane's dignity, Nancy marches into producers' offices to defend the character's intelligence. Crew members whisper that she knows every lighting technician's name, brings coffee to extras rehearsing in the cold, and corrects sexist dialogue with the authority of a grammar sergeant. During lunch breaks, she pores over the New York Times, tracks civil rights marches, and drafts unsent letters to editors about voter suppression, letters her publicist begs her to shelve. Behind meticulous professionalism, a magnetic pull intensifies, not toward studio galas or Malibu beach houses, but toward artists who wield humor as a sword. The pull crystallizes one humid May evening when she crosses a ballroom floor toward a comedian whose laugh splits the air like a trumpet. She feels both terrified and exhilarated, as though stepping onto a diving board suspended above untested water. No nightly sitcom audience will ever hear the splash that follows, but its ripples will shape the rest of her life. It is the spring of 1968, and Los Angeles hums with both protest marches and velvet rope fundraisers. A celebrity roast at the Beverly Hilton aims to raise money for inner-city literacy, and the guest list ranges from button-down network executives to Motown royalty. Red Foxx arrives late, wearing a satin tuxedo and a grin that telegraphs trouble, pockets bulging with index cards scrawled in blue ink. His stand-up sets, too racy for network television, are already legend along the Chitlin circuit, but tonight he tones down the profanity just enough to keep the censors at bay. Mid-banquet, Nancy slips in, illuminated by the chandelier's warm glimmer, towering in a teal silk gown. When Red unleashes a riff about Beverly Hills socialites who can't find Watts on a map, her laughter rings through the banquet hall like wind chimes. He notices the sound, scans the tables, and locks eyes with the statuesque woman 2 rows from the stage. Between courses, a mutual friend ushers introductions. Conversation ignites like dry brush. They debate Saul Alinsky's latest book, trade gossip about network censorship, and discover a shared habit of annotating paperbacks until margins weep with ink. She marvels at his fearless authenticity. He is enchanted by her razor-sharp wit and relentless curiosity. Around them, the ballroom spins with small talk and martini orders, but their corner becomes a sanctuary of candor. By dessert, they agree to meet again, far from paparazzi lenses. Over the next months, they convene in tucked-away jazz clubs, used bookshops on La Brea, and midnight soul food diners staffed by cooks who know to keep confidences. They devour Baldwin essays, dissect court rulings, and challenge each other with vocabulary duels, declaring the winner whoever finds a word the other must look up. One balmy August night, she confesses that her naval experience taught her everything has a code. Together, they invent one of their own, folding jokes into cryptic phrases so sly, not even seasoned gossip hounds could decode them. Their growing bond unfolds beneath the long shadow of America's racial tension. Although the Supreme Court's Loving v. Virginia decision has struck down anti-miscegenation laws, public hostility toward interracial couples lingers like cigarette smoke. To complicate matters, Nancy's private circles murmur about her possible bisexuality, speculation she neither confirms nor denies. Red juggles alimony payments from previous marriages, each divorce chronicled gleefully by tabloid vultures. They decide their best defense is invisibility, Secrecy becomes an art. She learns alternate studio exit routes, memorizes which parking garages lack reporters, and schedules voice-over sessions that are in truth quiet lunches with Red in Malibu cottages rented under his manager's name. He buys vintage fountain pens so they can write actual letters, burn after reading notes filled with philosophical puzzles and flirtatious puns. They establish chess nights where the winner dictates the next clandestine meeting spot. Within those private hours, they find refuge. They cook collard greens and matzo ball mashups, harmonize to Billie Holiday records, and plot pranks, like slipping progressive talking points into comedic bits to test what censors will cut. Sometimes they argue thunderously about tactics for social change. Then they reconcile over pie, laughing at how their stubbornness mirrors each other's. Friends entrusted with the secret speak of a chemistry that crackles in silence. The way Nancy's hand hovers near Red's elbow when reporters pass, or the way his gaze softens whenever she enters a rehearsal hall. If intimacy remains ambiguous to outsiders, commitment is undeniable. In a letter dated January 1969, she writes, "You remind me that laughter is not escape, but resistance. Keep laughing with me until the world learns the tune." He stores the page inside a Bible he keeps by his dressing room mirror. The 1970s usher in seismic change. The Beverly Hillbillies ends in '71, and Nancy channels the void into activism, speaking at ERA fundraisers and tutoring veterans in creative writing. Red, meanwhile, conquers prime time on Sanford and Son, transforming his raw stand-up vigor into a sitcom juggernaut. Their schedules rarely align, yet Sunday night phone calls become sacred ritual, echoing with jokes about Nielsen ratings and Capitol Hill hypocrisy. By 1984, Nancy grows restless watching politics from the sidelines. Pennsylvania's 9th district seat opens, and Democratic organizers beg her to run. She drives cross-country, trading Hollywood sets for steel mill parking lots, delivering stump speeches that quote both FDR and Dorothy Parker. Reporters press about her personal life. She stays resolutely on message. Factory jobs, clean rivers, equal pay. Red secretly funds radio ads under an alias, his laugh booming through Pittsburgh airwaves. "This voice ain't endorsing, but I sure like what she says." Election night ends in razor-thin defeat. Analysts blame redistricting, money gaps, Buddy Ebsen's infamous endorsement of her opponent, and that intangible bias against candidacy from a woman who never trumpeted husband or children. Nancy thanks volunteers, concedes gracefully, then spends dawn pacing a motel balcony, calling Red to whisper that she feels strangely victorious. He replies that every joke bombs before it slays. The key is walking back on stage. After politics, she pivots to academia. Juniata College hires her to teach acting, rhetoric, and a wildly popular elective called comedy as social critique. Students recall 3-hour seminars that felt like Broadway matinees, Nancy annotating Aristophanes with cartoon drawings, insisting laughter and justice share a root system. She never discloses her link with Red, but stories seep through coded references, anecdotes about a dear friend who could turn heartbreak into punchlines and pain into policy jabs. By the late 80s, residuals cushion retirement, and Nancy buys a modest Connecticut farm, craving soil under fingernails and quiet mornings unbroken by call sheets. She rescues 2 retired police horses, names them Laurel and Hardy, and teaches them to nuzzle visitors for peppermint treats. When blizzards prove too grueling, she decamps to Palm Springs, a desert city whose clean lines and tolerant spirit suit her unflashy generosity. There, she volunteers at the Humane Society, organizes Desert Theater League benefit galas, and spends Saturday dawns delivering breakfast burritos to construction crews laying foundation for an accessible arts center. Red's fortunes wobble. Tax debt forces breakneck Vegas residencies. Yet each time his tour bus roars west, he detours to Palm Springs, parking on a side street to avoid fan melee. They share sunrise coffee on her patio, trading barbs about youth-obsessed Hollywood and comparing medication side effects like war stories. She jokes that they've become undercover grandparents of American comedy. He replies that aging activists never retire. They simply change gigs. In 1990, Nancy is diagnosed with cancer, a blow she meets with the practiced stoicism of a former lieutenant. She undergoes aggressive chemotherapy that steals her razor wit on certain afternoons, but never erodes it entirely. During treatments, Red sends cassette tapes of fresh stand-up routines, slipping in whispered affirmations between punchlines. Nurses report that Nancy listens with eyes closed, lips twitching in laughter, even when pain spikes. On February 3, 1991, she dies at 69 in Palm Desert. Her will requests a simple Quaker-style service and the inscription "She kept the joke alive" on her headstone. 8 months later, Red collapses on a studio floor, clutching his heart mid-rehearsal, his final words an expletive delivered perfectly on rhythm. One last gift to comedy. For years, the depth of their bond survives only in rumor and gossamer anecdote. Then, in 2025, sealed estate boxes open at a Philadelphia law office. Inside rest 31 letters, 4 chess scorecards, and a napkin sketch of a duplex he once proposed they buy when the world grows up. Legal custodians release digital scans, and historians piece together a conversation spanning 3 decades. Arguments over draft dodging, pep talks before auditions, flirtations built on citations from Zora Neale Hurston. One letter, dated June 1974, crystallizes their raison d'etre. Some connections must hide in shadow, so the light we share can survive unfiltered. One day, the shadow will recede, and what stood protected will stand proud. There is no scandal, only a pact of mutual respect, carved in times hostile to their existence. Their story reframes them not as secret lovers doomed by society, but as strategists who chose stealth so that affection could bloom unbruised. As biographers publish excerpts, fans rewatch Hillbillies and Sanford episodes, hunting hidden nods. A wink Nancy gave off script, a grin Red fought to conceal during a cameo. Viewers realize the prim secretary and the junkman patriarch were waging separate, intertwined wars. She against sexism and heteronormativity, he against racism and class disdain, finding in each other a foxhole of laughter where wounds could heal. Nancy Kulp and Red Foxx prove, beyond punchlines and primetime applause, that Hollywood's dazzle can never outshine the quiet voltage of 2 souls determined to protect what matters most. They remind us that behind every studio spotlight beats a private drum, a rhythm of loyalty, intellect, and audacity that refuses to conform to society's narrow choreography. Their bond, carefully sheltered from headlines hungry for sensational angles, wasn't born of scandal, but of sacred purpose. To build a refuge where laughter doubled as defiance, where empathy rewrote the rules, and where love could breathe without camouflage or compromise. They chose secrecy not as an apology, but as armor, forging an invisible shield against a world eager to flatten their complexity into marketable scandal. Beneath that shield, they shared chessboard confessions, annotated first-edition novels, and cassette-taped pep talks, tiny rebellions that kept their spirits buoyant while they clashed with racism, sexism, homophobia, and the relentless churn of celebrity gossip. Each clandestine rendezvous was an act of strategy as much as affection, a calculated stand for dignity in an era that weaponized difference. Yet secrecy never muted their influence. It amplified it in subtler frequencies. Red's fearless satire chipped away at racial caricatures, even as Nancy's poised satire punctured gender expectations, both echoing each other's crusade from parallel stages. Their letters, now unsealed, read like a blueprint for covert resilience. Jokes as camouflage, intellect as compass, tenderness as North Star. In every paragraph, they urge each other, and, by extension us, to weaponize wit against oppression and to treat vulnerability as an act of radical courage. What then will you safeguard when the world demands spectacle? Will you let tabloids dictate your narrative, or will you script your own, fortified by conviction and care? Perhaps the truest legacy of Nancy and Red lies not merely in reruns or rediscovered correspondence, but in the invitation they extend. Live brazenly honest yet selectively revealed. Laugh so fiercely that injustice loses its footing, and guard your quiet sanctuaries as fiercely as any public triumph. Their story may have concluded with folded scripts and locked dressing rooms, yet its resonance endures wherever someone chooses authenticity over applause, integrity over immediacy, or intimacy over intrusive scrutiny. Every time we refuse to let fear edit the screenplay of our hearts, we echo their hidden duet. And in that echo, steady, subversive, resilient, The joke stays alive, the love stays whole, and the truth finally stands center stage, unashamed and uncut.